Good morning again. Our focus for this morning is imagination. Do you remember playing make believe when you were a child? Experts tell us that there are real benefits for children who actively spend time using their imaginations, from expanding creativity and developing empathy to improving language skills, problem solving skills, and even physical skills. Spending time in lands of make believe helps us gain tools we can use throughout our life. I think back to some of the games I used to play with my friends. We used to spend hours together imagining different stories. Some of them were pretty straightforward, even practical. When we played school, someone got to be the teacher, and the rest of us were the students, and we actually taught each other things we were learning in school. On long trips, my sister and I often played shoe store. We loaded up a grocery bag with all of our shoes and spent the ride role playing being a customer, delighting at the new styles, thinking about which outfits they would go with, and ultimately choosing which ones we wanted to buy. We would try them on, and we would pay the store owner with pretend money. And of course, the store owner would have to make correct change. I think of other games were helping us explore our own fears and develop more compassion. We often played hospital and spent hours suffering horrible illnesses, amputations, birth defects, and even untimely death. Sometimes we played orphanage and thought about what it would be like to lose our parents and suffer the cruel treatment we imagined went on in an orphanage. But we were careful not to play this game when we were with our friend Debbie because we all knew that she was actually adopted and being an orphan wasn't a game for her. We created stories where evil witches were trying to get us, which probably led to the recurring dream I had about a witch coming for me every night at midnight. I guess I was trying to work through fear even when I was asleep. So, what about dreams? Aren't they really a form of make believe? I don't know about you, but I have dreams that are like whole movies, taking me to amazing places, exploring unbelievable stories, meeting with family or friends or people I've never even met, created by my imagination, but of course always tied to reality. Sometimes our dreams are helping us process things in our lives that we may have set aside during our waking hours. The make believe world of dreams can give us insights into ourselves if we take time to analyze them. But of course, some of our most demanding dreams may just be telling us to wake up and go to the bathroom. You know, reality. The dreams we have during the day, our aspirations and hopes for ourselves and others, may also start as make believe, but the difference with these dreams is the intention connected to them. We want to transform our make believe into reality, knowing they may not come true, but taking action to see if they will. Sometimes our make believe games we played as kids were giving us chances to think about what we would be when we grew up. My friends and I played in the sandbox and built whole towns, adding plants from our yards to look like trees. We pretended to be bakers and developed new recipes, all made from sand and water. My favorite recipe was for spaghetti cookies, which I imagined as a sort of meatball wrapped in spaghetti frosted with marinara. My sister had a trio of imaginary friends that she interacted with on a regular basis. Bisa, Disa, and Donnie Bone played with her when her three older siblings left her out of the fun. Sometimes they got her out of trouble too. When mom asked her if she made the mess, only to find out that it was Bisa and not my sister Patty. We also spent many hours becoming the characters in our favorite movies. I especially loved Rodgers and Hammerstein's version of Cinderella. I waited for it to come on TV each year and I memorized every song. And just like Leslie Ann Warren, in my own little corner, in my own little chair, I absolutely believed I could be whatever I wanted to be. One year, my friends and I put on our own version of this show for all the neighbors who would come. And yes, I played Cinderella, even though I was the oldest and tallest and probably should have taken the role of the horrible stepmother. And since there were no boys in our friend group, I made my little sister be Prince Charming. Perhaps that's another reason she created imaginary friends to play with instead of me sometimes. I think about my own kids and the make believe games they like to play. They played little birds in the fig tree in my front yard. The grass beneath the tree is lush and grows faster than the rest of the lawn, and the kids would pluck handfuls of the grass to build their nest. Mama bird feeding and nurturing baby bird until they were ready to fly. They also played Great Panda Rescue, where big sister Jamie got to be the environmentalist and little brother Jerry got to be the panda bear she rescued over and over again. Games like these help us practice aspects of our identity as we grow, building a nest and caring for others, perhaps good things for a future minister to imagine. It has been fun for me to look back at my childhood and think about how the games we played really did influence who I am and how I live my life. To look at how I've grown in wonder over the years. I encourage you to take some time this week and think about the things you imagined when you were a child. How have you grown in wonder too? Thank you.
I don't remember ever being as creative as my daughter when it comes to make believe. I mean, I remember building a whole Lego town and inventing machines, at least on paper. And there was the summer my father made me a tower out of scaffolding and I pretended it was a time machine. But I always had toys and other props that were already close to what I was imagining them to be. My daughter can take bits of cloth and some twigs and a strip of aluminum foil, oh, and tape, lots of tape, and make characters in a whole story from scratch. She even went through a phase where all she wanted in the bath were a couple of wipes, because those were her mermaids. Thankfully, that phase ended about the time we figured out why the drain kept getting clogged. Child psychologists have a lot to say about the benefits of make believe and pretend play in areas as diverse as vocabulary, hand eye coordination, socialization, emotional intelligence, and critical thinking. For all that make believe often involves pretending that an object is actually something else, it also helps with imagining different outcomes to a situation, and with the children imagining themselves as other people, which is an important part of empathy and compassion. I've been wondering lately, though, about the benefits of make believe for adults. I'm not talking about denying reality or buying into conspiracy theories. Anyone who believes that Jewish space lasers are causing forest fires really should be disqualified from serving in Congress. Rather, I'm talking about healthy imagination, such as coming up with pretend scenarios that can help us deal with challenging times. In case you don't think you've played make believe in your adult life, there's a whole range of ways in which I'm pretty sure you have. Consider movies or plays or a good novel. They do a lot of the work for you in setting up an engaging story that draws you into an imaginary world. But you still have to do some imaginative work, that whole suspension of disbelief thing, in order to participate. If you've acted or told a story, That's the complementary form of make-believe. Then there's role-playing, long a favorite in UU trainings and my cue to not volunteer as hard as I can. There's brainstorming in meetings, there's creative writing, there's artistic expression, all of them forms of make-believe used by adults, often without recognizing them for what they are. Sometimes we're more aware of it, and we intentionally seek out an imagined scenario because it's better than reality. Last March, we were supposed to meet up with family and spend a week in Florida. It had been a couple of years since I'd seen my sister, and it would have been my daughter's first time at Disney World. But then the pandemic laid waste to that plan. Almost a year later, I still don't know when we'll be able to be together. Not that any of us have gone anywhere during that time. Even before the pandemic, my parents weren't traveling anymore, so I know we need to go to the UK as soon as it's possible and safe to do so. I just don't know when. So I've been imagining such a trip, visualizing us on the plane, arriving in England, going to their house, spending precious time together. It doesn't change reality, but it helps, even if just a little. It helps to get me through this challenging time. Many UUs consider themselves realists, and I include myself here. We're not given to flights of fancy, and we want our vision for the future to be supported by a plan and a budget. Our 7 principles, though not particularly concise, use straightforward language to describe what matters to us, and we have no shortage of detailed, practical programs to work on every part of them. It has also been noted that UU congregations tend to be rather literal when it comes to naming, planning, and programming. As with most things in life, though, there is a middle way, a medium that is called happy because, well, it's good to be there. Just as any vision does need a plan if it's to stand any chance of being realized, so does every plan need a vision, or else it's just pointless busy work. So this morning, Joanne and I are making the case that imagination and make-believe and pretend play should not be limited to our youngest members. After the last year, which by most measures was horrific, and with the plethora of crises that are still very much ongoing, our imaginative and creative abilities are essential for our healing and recovery. Don't worry, we're not expecting everyone to suddenly become enthusiastic role players. But as we've described, there are plenty of other ways for us as adults to play make-believe.